Most people never become themselves, not because they're incapable, but because they quietly learn to stop trying. This video explains the hidden psychological reason people slowly abandon who they could have been without noticing it happening. Most people think becoming yourself is about courage, confidence, or finally going for it. But psychology points to something else. Before people stop acting, they stop imagining safely. Early curiosity feels harmless. You try things, explore identities, test interests without pressure, with no audience and no consequences. But the moment an identity becomes visible, when it can be seen, judged, or misunderstood, the mind changes its strategy. It stops asking what you want and starts asking what won't cost you safety. That's the first quiet shift. People slowly narrow themselves, calling it being realistic, saying, "That's just not me," or "I'm not built for that," while psychology sees identity risk management. The mind learns which versions of you get approval and which create friction, and over time it stops offering the risky versions, not because they disappeared, but because they became expensive. The emotional cost feels too high. This is how people abandon themselves, not in one big decision, but through thousands of tiny negotiations, speaking less honestly, choosing what's expected over what's interesting, delaying actions that would make their inner world visible. Each choice feels small, but together they form a pattern that teaches the brain a powerful lesson. Staying undefined is safer than becoming real. Psychology calls this identity diffusion, though most people experience it as confusion, saying they don't know who they are anymore. The truth is subtler. They know, they just learned to stop listening, because listening would require responding, responding would require change, and change would require risk. So the mind protects itself not by saying no, but by saying later. Midway through life, many people notice something strange. They're functioning, productive, busy, yet distant from themselves. This leads to the core insight most people miss. You don't lose yourself by failing. You lose yourself by avoiding the moment you could be seen trying. The mind fears exposure more than incompetence. Failure can be explained, but visibility can't be controlled. So people build identities that are quiet, acceptable, and incomplete, choosing roles over expression, stability over resonance, predictability over aliveness. From the outside, it looks like maturity, but from the inside, it feels like dullness, not pain or crisis, just a low-volume dissatisfaction that never demands attention. The most convincing part is that this state feels normal because everyone around you is doing the same thing, mirroring restraint and rewarding moderation. So the absence of self doesn't feel like loss. It feels like adulthood. Eventually, people stop asking who they could become and start asking how to maintain what they've built. The question changes, and quietly, so does the direction of a life. Most people think becoming yourself is something you do later, after you're ready, after things calm down, after permission arrives, without realizing that waiting is the very thing shaping who they become. So when people say they never became themselves, it's not because they didn't know who they were, but because somewhere along the way, they learned it was safer not to find out.